In this box are pieces of a knight, a chaos knight. A bunch of 3D prints that I went about making in the background of all our last videos and have been hesitant to build this thing up until now. The biggest issue with any big build and or large or small is that I will have a little bit of hesitance with it. I'll be looking at all the pieces and be like, this thing, where do I even start? And I wanted to make it a kit bash and something unique, and I was overthinking it. And I just decided, let's just pull out the bits and just start, because that's how you get every project going. So let's dive into it. A few of the pieces are misprinted, warped, or just outright have holes in them. And that's okay. We're going to take advantage of that and try to use it as a strength rather than a weakness, save ourselves some time and some resin, and just keep moving forward with the build. So for some of you guys out there, this might be your first 40k video, maybe it's your third or fourth or fifth, and maybe you don't know much about the lore of knights or 40k in general. So let me give you a little nugget of information straight from the wiki. Imperial knights are towering bipedal engines of war that hail from feudal worlds of the Imperium, known as Night Worlds. These ancient battlesuits stand 9 to 12 meters tall and are protected by nearly impenetrable ion shields. Each knight is armed with a devastating array of heavy weapons. Knights are not merely war machines, but relics from a lost age, armored giants from a forgotten era. One does not drive such an heirloom, it must be bonded with. Only a noble from an ancestral knight house may have such an honor. Now, take all of that you just heard and combine it with chaos. And if you don't know what chaos is a metaphysical, psychic force embodied by the malevolent entities comprised of emotional energy that exist in the immaterium. And so we take those two concepts, imperial knights that are old ancient relics of battle, and then you take the immaterium, the other world, the chaos world, and this knight goes through it and comes out a chaos knight, and that's kind of what we're making today. Might not make a lot of sense, but it possibly gives you an idea for those of you who are still new to the lore. I suggest checking out some of the links I'll be putting down below in the description if you want to learn more about chaos and more about knights and all the fun stuff. And yeah, check those out. So in the background, I did some battle damage. That's all you guys missed out on. Right now, we're working on the knee joints. I wanted my knight to be double jointed, kind of like one of these. This is called a Knight Abhorrent, and these are so freaking sick, but they're $180. Now, at most, I spent maybe 70 bucks on this whole build. At minimum, probably $50, which to me is a complete steal, and for doing a little bit of labor, isn't too bad. In order to get that double jointed look, I just took the basic knight legs that come in any standard kit and sanded down the joints to fit this other kit that we have. Sometimes when combining two different kits, we get some gaps, and so in order to fill those gaps, I took some turret muzzles from a Hydra tank, cut them down, and sanded them to angles that made them look like pistons on the back of the knees. There is still quite a bit of space, but we're going to fill those spaces up with something else later. Remember, it can't be a chaos model without some spikes, so I looked around in my bit bin and found these bad boys. I just cut open some holes on top of the carapace and glued these guys on. This video is so long, I have to keep things fairly short, so here's the base. The base is made of corkboard, some dirt, sprue, and then on top of the corkboard is some spackle. Simple stuff all held down by PVA and super glue. Later, this will look like some terrain and rubble that our big old knight is standing atop of. Next up is my favorite two-part epoxy, green stuff. Mix a little bit of yellow and a little bit of blue and you got green stuff. It hardens within a couple of hours, so you gotta work fairly quickly, and it's kind of like working with old gum and or Laffy Taffy of some sort, except Laffy Taffy tends to melt. I also found these green stuff rollers online, and they actually work really well. The whole idea is you take these two different bits of rollers and you smush the green stuff between them, and it's supposed to make some sort of tentacle and or wire. My first little go at this, it didn't go so smooth. I wasn't applying pressure evenly, and it looks a little odd, a little scaly, which is kind of cool, but not exactly what I'm going for. My second try was with some green stuff that had hardened a bit too fast. I forgot about it, and I gave it a go, applying a bit too much pressure now. But the results were pretty cool. It was a strange oblong looking coil and or a maggoty looking thing, and I decided, you know what, this would look perfect on the knight, so I stuck it right on. Every once in a while, instead of using the green stuff roller, I tried doing things by hand, and yeah, it gives the tubes a more organic and creepy, chaosy look. If you don't have a green stuff roller, you don't necessarily need one. You may notice on later in the build that some of these are all twisty and really textured, and that's most of the ones I did by hand. And now it's time for the flesh hood. I hate that I have to say that, but really the reason being is because we have to emulate what this guy looks like. We're kind of trying to go with the theme. This smaller armature is actually what kind of kickstarted this whole Chaos Knight Kit Bash project, and without him, we wouldn't be making this big boy right now. So in order to do this, I took a dollar store toy and cut it up into pieces until it kind of made like a bone-like structure on the outside of the carapace. And then we applied some green stuff and rolled that on over the top just to be able to make a flesh hood. After applying the green stuff on the hood, we just simply applied more green stuff and tentacles all over the legs. And yeah, we're just gonna chill out for a second and let the beats play. Next is the longest part of the whole process, the chain face. This took a long time, so I did it in a quick little montage, but there's about 3 rows of chain on the face, and it made the model actually really heavy. So to give you an idea of what this big guy looks like next to the little dude, here he is. Look at that cute little family we're getting. When I looked at the model, I noticed it needed some variation, so I just clipped off a couple chains here and there, and then I realized this thing is very weighty, so I decided to do some pinning on the feet. I went about drilling some holes and then put in some paper clips. even though they're just paper clips, a lot of pinning goes a long way, and with how heavy this model is, I wanted to be extra safe. I even ended up putting some pinning in the waist to make sure things were really holding up. And touchdown. After feeling like that thing was solid, I put it aside and then put on the arms, and here's what the whole thing looks like put together. It is looking so awesome. Halfway through editing this thing, I was like, this video is already 10 minutes long. Can I fit the painting into this? And I thought, well, we gotta, because I don't want to do a two-parter and I don't want to leave you guys hanging, so let's get right to priming this bad boy. After setting down the black primer, I decided it was time to put on some metallics. I used Skorax bronze with a little bit of black acrylic just to dull it down. The reason being is because we're going to be chipping into this, and I felt like it was going to be too bright when having that as a base layer. On the other side of the armor panels, I just used a basic airbrush lead belcher. And now it was time to apply chipping. I just put this on anything that looked, well, chaotic. Bones sticking out, bullet holes, battle damage, you name it. We just put it where it felt like it was going to work. After the chipping medium had dried, I decided to use a white ink and put on 3 bold layers. I personally feel like white ink is the best type of white to use on any project. I decided I wanted this guy to be pretty distinct from the rest of the army, and so I wanted to give him 3 maroon reddish stripes. When applying these, I just used some basic Scotch tape that had been ran over my clothes several times so it wouldn't be too sticky and pull off any paint. After having applied these stripes, it kind of reminded me of my favorite piece of Chaos Knight art. It's this guy. I'm sure he has a name. I don't know what it is, but he has some red arrows all along his armor, and I wanted the same thing for my knight. So I went about making these stripes into arrows. Now that we had all our paint and decorative arrows, it was time to apply the chipping. Just a little bit of water on any area where we put the chipping paint, and voila. I reapplied the Scorex bronze on all the chipping areas and the corners of the pauldrons. The only issue is that in the video it makes it look gold. Trust me, it's bronze, it's not gold. On the back of the legs, I simply dry brushed a little bit of lead belcher and various other metals to kind of give variety to the pistons and other working mechanisms of this knight. And now for the fun part, all the gore and flesh. I simply used Vallejo Game Colors Bone White on all the skin bits. After several layers of that bone white, I applied a red ink and a burnt umber ink to the layers of flesh. Then I took a paper towel and pulled off any excess and repeated this process ad nauseum until it was to my liking. This gives the look of blood and gore without overdoing it, I think. It almost is too perfect. If you ever try this out, I also add water to some areas just to really make things run and make it really nice and soft. If you really want it to stain, add a lot more ink. On the weapon of this model, I just used a variety of metallics. You go at it however you want, but I use dark bronzes, dark golds, bright silvers, whatever would make it pop without clashing against itself too much. And next is my biggest secret, a dirty down rust wash. Now I don't think this is how it's supposed to be used at all. You're supposed to pull it straight from the bottle, but instead I mixed it with a little bit of water and applied it all over the model. And then after applying it over the model, I also applied more water to pull it off and then used paper towels to pull off even more. So it was kind of like a wash. It tints everything down to a grimy, gross, oily yellow that I really enjoy, and on top of the white paneled armor, which I apply later, it adds almost a coffee stained look that is super freaking cool, and I just went all out. Now, Dirty Down Rust is water activated and could reactivate with almost anything, or at least that's what I've heard. So in order to make sure it didn't interact with anything else in the build, I applied a matte varnish several times over just to be safe. And now for the fun part. If the rust freaked you out and you think I ruined this model, just wait till you see the black oil wash. This scares me every freaking time I do it, but I know I can recover because oil washes are very forgiving. I simply applied it all over the model as messy as I wanted, and then went back over it with mineral spirits, Q-tips, and paper towels just to pull things off and kind of bring back that white. If you couldn't tell, what I'm doing is not complicated at all. It's a bunch of washes on top of a model and then pulling those washes off, and yeah, I'm not spending a lot of time or detail with this thing, but it's to my standard, and I think they come out pretty freaking awesome looking. It's important to go by your standard of what you think is important for you. If you want to push yourself in a project, then do it. If you don't want to and you just want to have a joyous time, then go for it. Mine's a little bit in between. I always kind of experiment as I'm making things, but this time around I was just trying to get this bad boy painted up and off my shelf. Now for the burn effect on the gun. All I used was Luxian Purple, Dracoff Nightshade, and a blue ink. I applied this first with the blue ink, followed by the Dracoff Nightshade, and then followed by the Luxian Purple. The only thing I would do different is to do a little less blue next time. It's a little something that I'll have to correct later, but that's okay. And now the last detail, white dry brushing. I did this to tie it all back to home base and not just be left with some yellow armor panels. And with the finishing up of that, I think it's time for those glam shots. How's it going, guys? It's been a while since we've had this type of outro. I feel like this OG setup. I really like it. Just the simple dim lighting and the front ambient lighting and just hanging out by the desk, you know. I want to say thank you to everyone who made it to the end of this video. A lot of time and effort was put into this model, and it took way longer than I wanted for a video, but it's here and it's out. And I'm just glad we have this big boy right here. Let's pull him out. He's just a freaking beast. And to have him be part of my future Chaos Knights army is just a joy. I kind of forget the models I make because I paint them up so fast most of the time, my smaller ones and different armies, and I don't really feel like I get to sit down and look at my work, because then I just take them and I go play with them right away because I'm so excited to use them on the battlefield. But with this big boy, it's like, wow. I think it's the biggest model I've ever painted so far, and it's yeah. I know I say that with every build and every model I paint on this channel, but yeah, this is a wow. This is a big wow. And he's one of 3 that we're gonna make. 2 more left, and I don't think I'm going to show that on the channel. Reason being is because I noticed my model videos don't get as much views as my terrain building videos, and as much as I like to do things for me, I also want to keep you guys entertained as well. So if you did enjoy this build, and maybe if this video gets, I don't know, 50 something likes, maybe 45, I'll consider doing another one, and maybe something more detailed and maybe something a little different. I don't know what we would do per se, because it's basically going to be the same thing as this guy, but we would come up with something. Anyways, that's enough talk. I want to say thank you to everyone who has subscribed recently. It's been awesome, and it means the world to me that people want to watch the things I create. And so if you guys have any ideas for any future videos or any suggestions, please comment down below. I love talking to you guys. You are all awesome and so encouraging. As always, hit that like button and subscribe, and thank you for supporting me and Boxnut, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.